But there's an XRP master plan. I wanted to check in on that. He revealed XRP's plan live on air. Bitcoin will be the gold standard of crypto. XRP will be the cash standard from country to country, business to business, and eventual country to a country at a cheaper cost than Swift. Yeah, that is the good thing that XRP does well here. You know, they're much, much cheaper than Ethereum, and that's why they're winning here right now. It doesn't mean that Ethereum is bad. It's just that this business to business that they had, you know, they were working on, and all the companies they bought, you know, Rail, they bought for 200 million, is a very, very big partnership that is going to set them up for the future of banking. Once we get into a live launch, I'm guessing 2026, 2027, maybe, possibly late 2026. We don't know 100%. It's also possible all the banks won't launch, you know, on the same day. It is a very, very certain factor that XRP does have a roadmap, a plan in that sense for XRP holders. So smash that like button, guys, if you haven't already. But let's check at this. Paul Atkins just shared his plan for XRP.
It has been taking great strides to upgrade its financial system to include digital assets, tokenization, and stablecoins. I wanted to take a look at the connections between the United States and, of course, Ripple and XRP. Can we foresee where this is all going? There's some information coming to light here from Paul Atkins telling us what he sees the future as. You have to hear this clip. We also are going to take a look at some other things like, can Ripple donate the escrowed XRP to the United States to pay off US debt? I wanted to take a look at this to better understand if it's even possible or what would need to happen to do that. So we're also going to look at that information after we take a look at this. So this image is from years ago. I'll show you who's all in this image. You got Brad Garlinghouse right here. And then this is the, frequent White House summit where they are talking about cryptocurrency. You have the CEO of Coinbase. You have Michael Saylor here. Brad Garlinghouse is right here on the left, and a bunch of other people in between. Scott Bessent, the Treasurer of the United States.
Again, that's what I was telling you guys. None of these projects, Brad Garlinghouse legit met up with Trump. And they probably talked about crypto, and the future of technology. This is why it is miles ahead. For that simple reason, is no other projects, not even Ethereum, did that. Which is definitely very good news for anyone, in XRP space. Because how many crypto projects met up with the president of USA? Probably just one, right?
Is right there. And looking at who's in this picture below, right, you have people from the Monetary Authority of Singapore. You have people from the International Monetary Fund. This is Christine Lagarde here. She is now...
This is what I told you. This is like a networking event for them. So here being, Ripple being here, he can network with all of these people into this. Billionaires, all these tech companies on the future of banking. So it's a win-win, but it is like once in history.
The head of the European Central Bank, they're making a decision on whether to go forward with a CBDC for the digital euro, which I do believe they will. You have Ross Leckow from the IMF here, Brad Garlinghouse here. You have people from the Bank of Indonesia. And it's just interesting to see the rooms that Ripple has been a part of all of these years along the way. And you also are taking a look here at what the US is trying to do. They want to take American innovation and they want the rest of the world to use that American innovation, and they're talking about digital assets. Check this out.
So a couple of weeks ago, the administration issued the President's Working Group's report on digital assets in the United States, and there were clear directions to the SEC. We're part of the PWG, that President's Working Group, and clear recommendations for us to go forward and help make what the President has announced, his intention to make America the crypto capital of the world.
To make America the crypto capital of the world, right? That's something we've heard a bunch, but this next part is what I want you to focus on. Listen closely.
Make America the crypto capital of the world and have the world run on American technology.
Okay, so in the same sentence that they're talking about making America the crypto capital of the world, they're talking about having the world use American tech.
They already said that the US, not just XRP. I want to make it very clear, guys. Not just XRP, but there is going to be multiple of them that they are working with, which I am very excited for. Like multiple of these companies. And here's the good news. XRP is going to be one of them. They're probably going to favor US companies before any other crypto company.
technology, and we were talking about digital assets in that same breath. So you start to wonder, well, what American cryptocurrencies are they talking about here? Because when you take a look at the top tokens, Bitcoin, is that American innovation? Is anybody using Bitcoin for international payments or anything? Stablecoins? Right? Tokenization? No. Ethereum, it's based in Switzerland. It's not an American company. It's not American innovation. And then you have XRP, which is all of the above. And so you start to wonder, is there things that we could take a look at right now showing the US government, Ripple, and XRP? Let's go ahead and take a look at this information. The US government and Ripple, direct and indirect engagement. Federal and regulatory relationships. Ripple.
US companies were clearly the biggest winners of 2025. And also, I guess, 2024, because they were setting up. Like, these are the ones that actually won in the end, which we did not expect, right? And it was literally Ripple who was working for the last 9 years, and the government favored now US crypto companies. And I have a feeling they could connect, like the US could start investing in these companies because they want to build their own technology. They don't want to use, other people's technology or from other countries. They want their own technology to boost their products or banking transfers. Imagine how powerful it is if the biggest payment processor and the biggest bank transfers in the world are coming from USA. Again, that's what USA wants to push.
Has actively engaged with multiple major US federal agencies over the years. This includes the Federal Reserve, the SEC, the US Treasury, and Office of Comptroller of Currency. In 2014, the US Government Accountability Office classified XRP as a virtual currency. In 2015, Ripple reached a compliance agreement with FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, a bureau of the Treasury setting industry standards for digital asset compliance. Fed integration and banking access. Ripple is strategically expanding its access to the US financial system through a partnership with Finastra. Ripple gained indirect access to the Federal Reserve master accounts and leveraging compatibility with FedNow service and the US government's...
Now, I didn't know that, but in my opinion, this is where most of the money comes in. There's no way XRP can transfer this volume of money at $10 XRP. It has to go thousands or better to sustain as it gets used by more and more business country at the same time burning. Yeah, it is not going to get used by worldwide yet. It can probably not even handle USA at this point, but they are trying to push towards it, right? And they're trying to at least push, maybe 10% of USA. And then they're trying to push for maybe like even if they can handle 1% of the world. So yeah, they cannot, transfer. Their blockchain is not advanced enough to transfer the whole world, from what I hear. Maybe not even 1%, but they're at least like, in the last 10 years, they've been getting closer and closer to doing it. Might take like another 10 to 15 years for technology to go there, but meanwhile, more banks will be joining up. The same time burning as the volume goes up. So yeah, XRP's main plan is probably burning XRP through your Ripple ledger.
Real-time payment infrastructure. Ripple also applied for a U.S. national bank charter and is seeking their own Federal Reserve master account. If granted, Ripple would be able to hold its reserves for its stablecoins directly with the Fed. There's some also policy proposals and integration of XRP. Notable, a proposal was submitted to the SEC's working task force suggesting XRP be designated as a strategic financial asset. So this was sent in by a regular person. This is not something that the government actually built, but I've seen this document. It is a real document, but it's just not what a lot of people thought it was. Recommendations includes presidential executive orders, regulatory clarity, and mandates for banks to adopt XRP for liquidity. Through these ambitions, proposals have not yet enacted by law. National Crypto Reserve and executive discussions. Former President Trump publicly announced intentions to create a U.S. crypto reserve, mentioning XRP, Solana, and ADA. He went on to walk back these comments about U.S. supporting American innovation. There is no plan. There is no money to buy American assets. They just came out yesterday, Scott Bassett, to say that they don't have any plans to buy Bitcoin, which, made me happy, but it also made me sad, right? I thought that they were going to...
It is unfortunate because we were kind of expecting that, right? It was a big point of crypto. I feel like this could also have a turnaround, but it's a very big factor. If the US government would buy into crypto, would be tremendous gains. Probably like Bitcoin would basically double, depending on how much they would buy, of course. But just the hype behind it would be the new crypto push that, we were talking about.
American crypto innovation, but it was just kind of sad because I felt like a lot of us were, expecting something to happen.
I definitely was.
It hasn't yet. Now, not saying that it won't in the future, but right now there's no action or plan to buy any cryptocurrency with any money, right? Because this was all done by executive order. When Trump just issues an executive order, there's no taxpayer money behind it. If they wanted to be able to spend taxpayer money, they would need to get Congress and the Senate involved here in the United States.
So yeah, this was a big point of crypto politics, and when XRP went up, a lot of people were calling for XRP to get bought by the US. It's probably still a long process but I'm also not that surprised because we haven't heard news on that since January. The last time we heard news on this, on the government's buying crypto, is January, and now we finally have that, this money will not be used yet for that. Maybe they're waiting for more regulation and the Clarity Act to pass.
States, and if they push through some type of US crypto reserve with maybe 1% or 3% or something like that would go into supporting American innovation. Now that could be legendary. That could be something we could help set policy for other countries. If the United States does this, it would put pressure on other countries to follow suit. And I think we're missing out on a big opportunity here to show the rest of the world how serious we are. It's one thing to say that we're serious and pass regulation. Great. This was kind of expected. This is what we need, but what else are you going to do above this? And I think that's what I'm waiting for. It says Ripple executives have participated in official US government roundtables and continuous policy engagement, yada, yada, yada. Ripple's role in the US financial modernization, FedNow and ISO 20022. Ripple's product suite for ISO 20022 compliant, meaning it can interoperate seamlessly with FedNow and the Federal Reserve's real-time payment system. Remember, FedWire does process about $4.3 trillion a day. If you started to use, XRP or stablecoin, RLUSD for those payments, think of how much money the government could actually save. And then you could...
that's true, but, even processing 4.3 trillion is going to be very hard for XRP. Processing that would be probably quadrillion transfers or whatever, but we're not any time near processing that amount. Even Ethereum or Bitcoin could potentially not process this yet without having serious network fees. So I'm not too sure the government will go immediately from FedWire to XRP after one meeting. If this ever happens, again, XRP could easily go to $20. This is my personal opinion. But to get to actually working with the government is going to be a way harder process. So I see XRP blowing to 1,000 less than 10 years. What company is not going to want to do business with any bank who doesn't use Ripple? XRP at cheaper rate. All banks will have to confirm. Yeah, $1,000 is going to be hard as well because it's possible with a burn XRP $1,000. The issue is what we have right now is outflows are the biggest problem. If someone gets to $800, they will sell all of their XRP. So, we could get a pump in inflows, but then people will still be selling. So $100, $50, $70 is much more realistic in my opinion. But again, I don't know if that will happen in 10 years, but $15 is very realistic, in my opinion at least. Anything could happen.
Take that money and invest it into crypto, right? Because that wouldn't be new money created. That would just be money that you are saving. That would be a really unique idea to start buying crypto. Of course, we know about the bank charter application. I don't need to read that, but there's also been, legal developments. Ripple's long-standing battle with the SEC is finally over. So, nothing too crazy yet. I have seen some people, speculate that the IRS or refunds might be issued in, XRP or something like that, but I haven't seen any definitive proof yet on that. Is a plausible way to pay off national debt. Ripple donate.
The Escrow to U.S. government, XRP and Ripple have become the premier settlement layer infra for global CBDC and stablecoin flows. Around $800 per XRP, the U.S. government escrow is worth about $36 trillion. Again, can they really process $36 trillion? Not yet, but maybe this is a long-term theory plan. So it's going to be hard for Ripple to do that.
It's the escrow to the US government. XRP and RippleNet become the premier settlement layer and infra for global CBDC and stablecoin flows. At $800 per XRP, the US government escrow is worth $36 trillion. So is Ripple, could they even do this? Right?
No, probably not.
People just expect, they could give away $140 billion today and $36 trillion maybe in the future. Sure, why not, right? Is this even possible? Technically, the idea of Ripple donating its XRP escrow to the US government probably isn't possible in practice. And there are extreme policies and economic and technical roadblocks here. The US government's debt is 36 trillion and is comprised mostly of US treasuries held by institutions, countries, and the public, payable in US dollars. XRP is a cryptocurrency, not legal tender or an official reserve asset in the United States.
I mean, this will not happen for sure. It's not a legal tender, and there's probably a lot of implications to that. Would be nice to see that, but I don't ever see this happening. There's plenty of things that we could see. Ripple's escrow, about 50 billion XRP would be transferred to the direct government. Legal proven significant policy change. Like, this will never pass the Senate, in my opinion. We are still in very early stages of crypto. It is just a wild theory, in my opinion.
This is what regulation could change. For the US government to pay off debt using XRP, creditors would have to accept XRP as a payment, which global financial markets and US laws do not currently recognize. Converting XRP to US dollar on a massive scale would require an enormous market liquidity, probably far beyond the real world trading volume of XRP, even with a hypothetical price spike. And then it says, how would such a system work? Ripple donates escrowed XRP to the US government. Ripple's escrow is it's on the lower side now, it's about 39 billion. This would require legal approval, significant policy change, and likely new legislation. Global settlement system, RippleNet and XRP become the world's premier settlement solution for CBDCs and stablecoins, replacing SWIFT and other infrastructures. US debt holders, domestic and foreign, would have to agree to accept XRP in payment or the equivalent in tokenized assets. Like, this is something that I definitely could see happening, because remember, you can exchange anything of value for anything else of value on the XRP ledger, and we're getting, all of these different tokenized assets. This is just now starting. We just passed $1 billion in tokenized assets on the XRP.
I feel like when this happens, XRP is already going to be at $20. Like, people will be looking at the next big thing. XRP is now pushing the rock, to first $10. Like, it's the hardest part for XRP. The first 10 years is already done. It's going to be way easier for it to grow right now.
Ledger, we were just at like 200 million a few days ago. Now it's 1 billion. You're starting to see a huge influx now that we have the EVM sidechain up. This is going to be very, very big for Ripple and XRP. And of course, all of us, the XRP army. Price appreciation. XRP's price rises to $800 due to massive new support and utility. And then debt repayment mechanism. The US converts XRP into USD to pay its creditors. So, is it possible? There would have to be, legal considerations, legal tender discussions, liquidity, international acceptance, Ripple's role, CBDC and stablecoin infrastructure. There's just a lot of things that would need to happen in order.
There's also regulation, right? Regulation has not passed at all, which is another thing that a lot of people consider is a big problem right now. Regulation.
To get there. But I did find this video, which is really interesting because it was perfect for this. Can this be donated to the US government, or is there going to be a bunch of issues? Like, let's say Ripple woke up today and it was like, you know what, we don't need this $140 billion. Let's just, here it is, right? Even though it's locked.
And Ripple won't give away 140 billion because that's their treasury. They're going to use that in case of an emergency. Why would they give it out?
Up in escrow, they would have to time lock it, right, for the next 40 months or 42 months, whatever it is, and just give everything away, which we don't even know if some of that's already promised. But check this out.
I tell them what a gratis vendor is.
Yeah.
Because I was not going to go into the government. I was doing transition.
What is a gratis vendor?
A gratis vendor is an approved vendor for the United States of America that gives product to the government, doesn't sell it.
Okay.
So therefore, I don't have to go through the whole process of becoming a proper vendor because you're giving it to us. And then if you give it to Article 2, which is the president's stuff, then the president can accept it, right? Because it's give.
Sorry, what's an example of this? Like, just to make
I write some software.
You write some software.
I write some software for the Commerce Department to do a better job, XYZ. You just give it to me. And then I do QA on it, and I can take it. If you sell it to me for $1, we go into government hell.
Right, the whole rigmarole.
Yeah. Right, but if you give it to me, right, and then I set up, so I said, I'm calling it Doge.
All right, hold on, what is it called?
I tell them what a gratis vendor is.
Gratis vendor. All right, and I also want to take a look at this hot rumor alert. It's super hot. U.S. government.
I mean, even if you give something to the government for free, it does not mean that they will use it. Like, he's saying, yes, if we give the government for free, the XRP analogy, I'm not so certain they will use it because it might not work. The system right now, it works. It doesn't work perfectly, but it definitely works. So we're still a long way banks and, basically $1 trillion. And, the first trillion is going to be way, way harder. It's way easier to get a $1 billion partnership than it is to get a 36 trillion, basically changing the entire USA on how it worked the last 200 years. But again, I could be wrong on that. I hopefully am wrong, because then XRP would be probably $100, $200, which is, we're going into too much theory right now.
Ripple's escrow for national.
Trump's all in on XRP and it's rocking the top spot as a digital asset. I mean, Trump is just in crypto in general, right? Not just XRP.
Reserve purposes. Like, is this even possible? Of course, we run into the same issues, right? Legal barriers, no existing legal mechanism. Ripple's lawyers and independent legal experts have clarified that the US government does not have a straightforward legal path to seize XRP held in Ripple escrow accounts, barring a criminal conviction or invoking extraordinary national security powers. Ripple's court battles have been so far remained civil in nature. So if the government woke up tomorrow, there's lawyers that believe that they couldn't even take Ripple's escrow away from them. Government asset seizure requires due process. For the US government to seize assets, it would need a legal basis to do so. We've seen some crazy stuff happening recently, so I don't want to put anything past what our government can and can't do. Technical realities of the XRP.
So multi-signature account security, all of this stuff, all or nothing execution, this would be cool if they work with XRP. This would be like a $10 trillion plan. But to get to that, it's going to be very, very, very hard. And XRP going to, simply from zero to a hero, we have to get these bank partnerships first. The bank partnerships are going to be the biggest gains for XRP and the ETFs. Then we can actually focus on the task at hand, like, the bigger fish.
All over the world, as well as they are connected to financial market infrastructures all over the world, stuff like SEPA, Single Euro Payments Area. You have connections into SWIFT, you have connections into...
Like XRP could be working towards being the biggest payment provider. Even if it gets just 10% of the market share, it would still make it a very big project.
To FedNow through like Finastra or CGI. I mean, there's just so many connections here. You really start to think where Ripple could be in a year from now, 3 years from now, or 5 years from now. This is why I'm insanely bullish on XRP. If you could have bought Ethereum at $100, that was obviously a good play. Buying Ethereum now, maybe Ethereum goes to $10,000 or $15,000 a cycle if it's really insane. There's some people that believe Ethereum could go to maybe 20,000 or 25,000, but it's still only a 5 or 6x return. How long would you have to wait for that? Buying XRP at $3, you don't think XRP can reach $15 or $20? Especially
I feel like, it's much more possible that XRP goes to $15 to $20 right now. It's just why there's also institutions buying XRP ETFs in the future more than Ethereum and Bitcoin ETFs, because they can buy Bitcoin Ethereum ETFs because those are the ones available right now.
The new ETF demand, right? I just think there's more opportunity for people, especially new people getting into the crypto space, to buy XRP over Ethereum and Bitcoin. If you haven't bought it already, XRP might be the solution. All right, I hope this solves some questions in our minds of what is possible, what has Ripple done with the government so far? Can Ripple even gift the escrow to the national government? I just wanted to answer some of these questions. Sometimes you lay in bed and you start to think about this stuff did I go down this rabbit hole?
I mean, that is too crazy takes for me. I don't think it will happen. It's very good from Crypto Sensei to do that, analysis like this. But this theory is, we still have a lot to go, guys. We have a lot to go. If it happens, every single one of us will be happy. XRP and Ethereum holders, it's happening right now.
Army.
So look at that.